so excited. I love
Yeah.
some nuggets.
Yeah, there you go.
It's way too exciting.
First off, Alec, welcome to the show. Thank you for the time.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be joining you guys. This is awesome. Thanks for having me.
Good to see
A little
another
context here.
fellow indie
Legatto and
broker.
I have been doing wild speculation about Toronto real estate for the last 8 months, trying to pull like actual insights and data points. And recently we were talking about it on podcast and we got off the air and I was like, maybe we should actually talk to someone who's in that market. Like we should actually
Makes sense.
operates in there rather than just us in Halifax being like, oh, it's crazy.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, that makes a lot of sense.
A big reason why I even got into this industry was I just thought it was all wild speculation. So I just thought I was able to just say whatever I wanted to at any time. Turns out, I mean, every second person believes me.
Yeah.
yeah. Is it only every second? I don't believe that. That's lower than that. You don't bat
The
that
rest
well.
just don't listen.
That's funny.
Alec, so welcome to the podcast. Give the audience a little information. Who are you and what do you do?
Yeah, awesome. Alec Bowes. I've been in the mortgage industry for 20 years now, which is crazy to hear myself say that out loud. Yeah, I've spent my first 10 years in the business actually working on the lending side. So I've been a BDM and worked for a couple different banks and lenders over the years before, as we like to say, making the move over to the dark side. So I can now say I've spent my first half of my time in the industry on the lending side, and now the second half been a broker.
Okay.
I'm an owner and partner at our Guelph office for Indie Mortgage. Check out the branding, Matt.
Gotta do the branding.
That's right. So we've got a couple offices. There's our Guelph office, which is kind of our main hub, if you will. And then we've got an office in Burlington and one in Toronto and one in Hamilton as well, too. So we're kind of spread out sort of all over the general area of just outside of the GTA. So
okay. So 20 years in, you've seen it all then in Toronto.
You know what's crazy, Jason, is my very first job in the industry was working for one of the American subprime companies that was all part of the collapse. So that was my 2006 is when I started, and then 2008. So at that time, I always like to say, my colleagues have heard me say this before, you kind of got a PhD in mortgages really quickly because of how much we learned so fast. And I knew nothing. Knowing what I know now, I look back and I knew nothing. And, some of the loans that we were writing at that time, it made a lot of sense why things collapsed kind of things. Yeah, that was my intro into the business was American subprime lending. And of course, I didn't know any different. I had no idea what was good and what was bad. And again, I look back on that stuff now, and it was so obvious. Like, how did nobody else see this coming? So, but yeah, that was my intro into the business, which was crazy.
I gotta know, what was that like? Like, how stressful was that?
You know what? I got really, really, really lucky, Jason, to be honest with you. I met somebody at an industry event who basically kind of offered me a job on the A side to move over and join. Well, the company was Macquarie Financial. They were one of the first lenders in Canada to offer trailer fees. So big Australian bank, for those that don't know. And they kind of threw me a lifeline that I didn't even know I was going to need. And I took this job because it seemed like a really awesome opportunity. And I kid you not, it was like 2 weeks later, everything, crap hit the fan 2 weeks later. So I got out the time. And again, like, it was just a timing thing. It's not like I planned it or anything like that. I just got really lucky. But
wow.
Yeah, it was crazy though. It was crazy. Like, a lot of I still good friends with a lot of people that I met there. And, it was, to say it was stressful for those folks would be an understatement, because they had no idea what was going to happen the next day. And it all happened so fast, as everybody knows. So it was, crazy times.
I did not know. So that's wild. I've never actually, talked to people who've like lived in that market, and like that's wild to me. Okay. All right. We're going to skip over 2008 because that's over. We maybe have another one.
It's like a totally different podcast.
Okay. So
yeah, we'll get back to that one.
Totally different podcast of 2008. Okay. So you survived 2008 by the skin of your cheek because you got offered a lifeline.
Yep.
Amazing. Good for you.
Yep. Lucky. Yep.
Then in Toronto, correct me if I'm wrong, but you guys have kind of had like a bull market for since 2010. Like, prices have just kept going and going and going to like a point where you're like, how high does this go? Am I wrong?
No, you're bang on. Yeah, absolutely. And that's, a lot of people have made a lot of money on that market. And there's also, been a lot of folks that have been calling for this day for a very long time, of a bit of a reckoning, because as we all know, nothing goes like this forever. There's always a correction.
Do you know what I hate about those people?
Do tell.
They say the reckoning is coming every day since 2009, and then
Yes.
finally it's 2026, and they've missed out on hundreds of thousands of dollars of returns if you're a real estate investor. And
Yep.
on the day it happens, they're like, "It's here," and they retweet their tweet from 2008, being like, and then use a
I
whole
told you
like
so.
podcast on how they're a prophet of real estate. Anyway, I just had to get that in there. Okay.
I'm 100% on the same page with you, because I, needless to say, have
You
run
hit a
across
nerve.
numerous
You hit
of
a
those
nerve.
people over the last 10 years.
So, okay, you guys have a really big bull run for, all the way, I'm going to guess, up until recently, right?
Yes, correct. Yep.
And Matt, feel free to jump in if you think it's the first time doing a three-way pod in a while. So Matt, if you get anything, just don't stay in the back and be quiet, please. You can
Yeah,
engage.
if I just every now and then I might just get lost in the two of your eyes. You never know, but like I'll chime in when I have to. It's amazing just to watch. I'm like, this is so cool.
So I guess my first question would be like, you have this big bull, and then when do you get an idea that it ain't what it was? You know what I mean? That like something's amiss in the market.
Yeah, I mean, like for me personally, I had this aha moment. It was a client of mine buying a property in Kitchener, very, very average house at best. And this was kind of the peak of the height, Jason, of where I guess 2022 that would have been. And I remember, I'll never forget it, honestly, like looking at this one. I did a lot of deals during that time, as we all did. We were very fortunate, but this one, I'll always remember it. Just looking at this house, looking at the price point, looking at the carrying costs, and this is when rates were obviously still low at that time, and it just didn't make sense to me. It was like, this is crazy. And I forget the exact numbers, and it doesn't matter, but these folks in my mind were spending a couple $100,000 more, and again on a very below average house in a not so nice neighborhood in Kitchener. It's just like, this can't keep going. Like that was the moment for me, Jason, where it just stuck out to me, and I remember the deal. I remember the client's name. I could picture the deal. It just, and to be honest with you, it was probably within 4 or 5 months after that deal where we started to see the cracks with, Bank of Canada starting to raise rates, and, everything just started to kind of snowball from there. So yeah, that was my personal aha moment.
My moment, and now of course Halifax is different than Toronto, but my moment, just to give you a little context for me, was it was spring of 2022. Bank of Canada, and I've said this 1,000 times on this podcast. I think the Bank of Canada released that statement end of 21, being like, we're not raising rates until end of 23. And I thought that just set us up for absolute catastrophe. And it did. So in Halifax, we were doing, at one point, it was like February 2022, and we had less than 200 units for sale in all of Halifax. Like, just pandemonium, like it was, and all houses were getting, they were listed on the Wednesday, offers due Sunday, and they were getting about like, I think at the peak of it was 50 offers is what I wrote against at one point.
Crazy.
And I had clients be like, hey, how do you navigate this? And I was like, what are you talking about? What do you mean navigate this? What's your budget? That.
Right.
Don't put inspections. You can't. And I remember I had like 10. This was hard for me because I had about 10 buyers I was working with, because I just couldn't convert. I just could not move people through the funnel. And I remember at one point we were broke. There's no money in my bank account because I couldn't get a deal over the line. I was away all weekend showing 20 to 25 to 30 houses. And you sit down with clients on the Sunday night and you just would go through, okay, which one was your favorite? And you write these offers. You get multiple offers. And it was a crazy, crazy time. And I remember looking at my bank account. I'm broke. I can't get a deal over the line. And I had about $200,000 worth of commissions. It like all active,
right?
I couldn't get it because we kept losing. It was
right there, but you just can't get your hands on it.
Yeah, I'm literally like, and all 10 of them had houses to sell, but they would not sell until they bought.
Right.
So I was just trapped in like, there's so much money here, and I can't afford groceries. And never forget, it got to be in March, and I think I started tracking my losses. I think I had written at this point, this is March 2022. So at the start of 2022, I had written 45 offers and not had one under contract.
That's crazy.
So like it was, and I called 5 agents that I knew that I had good relationships with, and was like, hey, like, what are you doing to get to, like, how are you getting deals over the line? How are you making this work? Because I can't make anything stick. And of course, all 5 of them, I could not believe all 5 of them. Like, oh, it's $250,000, no conditions. What?
Over
every
asking,
offer, $250,000 over asking, no conditions.
Yeah.
My clients can't do that, and they would be like, oh, I guess you're not. So
Oh,
I
you're
ended
not
up taking
motivated
two.
enough. Yeah.
Apparently, yeah, we're just not. Yeah, it's our fault. I ended up taking like sat down my life. I was like, listen, we're broke. We're gonna have to call. I'm gonna have to call mom and borrow some money. I need to take a week. I took a week. I told my clients like, this is too much. I need a week. I took a week. I remember in that week, I was like, I'm either gonna have to change careers because if this keeps happening or something has to give. Like
Yeah.
this can't. There's no way this is sustainable. Like we can't continue on this path. And I was about 5 years in at the time, and only had recently become like a decent agent where I was doing sales. And then the first rate cut happened March 31st, or
Right.
like whenever that first cut
Yeah.
was, and I
Yeah.
was like, ah, there. That's my that was my moment of like, this market can't go on. Like this is craziness for
Yeah.
what people are doing to buy houses. So yeah, I had the kind of same thing you did.
Yeah, I mean, I just to jump in there really quickly, that's the same deal that I was referencing. What was crazy about that, and you just touched on it. This was normal. This was happening all the time. And what really threw me off on that one as well too, speaking mine and Matt's language here, is that the value, I didn't even need an appraisal on that property because the value hit. It auto approved with the lender and the insurer. I remember just have, like he said too, like people going that much over asking, and the fact that they could that the bank and the insurer could support that value. It was, just again like that. I just knew something was wrong. I mean, it was obvious, it was right in front of our face, but
So
crazy times.
when you have that moment, right? You did go through 2008.
Yep.
Did your mind immediately go back to 2008?
110%. Yes. Yeah. I knew there was something coming because, I mean, I'd been through it a little bit. Again, I was pretty young and didn't know as much as I know now, but going through an experience like that, it was, a lot of similar feelings for sure, Jason. Yeah, very, very familiar. Now it hasn't quite turned out. Obviously it wasn't like that was 2008. I mean, to say it was unprecedented times would be an understatement.
Right. We haven't had that. It hasn't been that dramatic where like one day the world fell through. It's
Exactly.
And
right.
that was like the 2008 stuff was more on the banking side too, right? That was missteps by how they were packaging CDOs and all this other stuff, right? I think the thing that gets me around here is like, we'll have these conversations, Jay, and we're just like, oh yeah, well the economists say this and the economists say that, and this is where the metrics should be and your days on list and all this other stuff. I have yet to see an economist in a transaction. I don't know if they're hiding. I don't see them. Like I see a borrower, I see a seller, I see a realtor, I see a lawyer. I don't even sometimes see the lawyer. It's just a paralegal. But I've yet to see an economist who's actually involved in the transaction. So for me, I'm just like, okay, we're saying on one hand, oh, it's economics. Bullshit.
Yeah.
To me, it's not economics running markets anymore. It's not. Like, again, you could say it is, but then you'll also use the same metrics to be like, oh, but according to the economics of it, none of these numbers should be the numbers. This shouldn't be what's happening with the metrics. You're like, that's because the economist isn't here. Sorry, I lost him again. To me, it's just, I think the emotion is now driving the train and it's not the economist.
No, I mean, real estate's emotional. Let's just be very, very. The only time it's not emotional is if you work with a real estate investor. And like, I'm talking like a seasoned pro.
Yeah.
Like, that's the only time where they're like, what's the math? Math doesn't work. I'm out. They don't care.
Yeah, math doesn't work.
But first time home investors who really want to get into real estate investment because they've seen the influencers, they've seen the TikToks, they've seen the Instagrams, and they're so keen to get in and burr their first property. They're so emotionally tied to being passive income, financially free, that they don't care about the numbers. They just think that, oh, I can make this work as real estate only goes up because we've only seen real estate only go up. Mm-hmm. Right. So, there's so much emotion tied into buying and selling these friggin' boxes that you wouldn't believe, and the way people rationalize it, right? But I'm getting off topic now. Okay, this is I got another question here. So you see 2022, you get that, oh my God, there's some red flags here. The auto approve on a house. That is scary to see a house that is someone's paying way too much for and the bank auto approves.
Yeah. Because there was enough comparable sales to support that value, and that was, I don't know what was worse, the fact that they way overpaid or the fact that we could actually support the value. It's crazy.
So in that moment, you see the auto approve and you get the doom and gloom. does your mind go to we're gonna see a correction and like it could be minimal, it could be small correction, but is it also like, because my mind went to like, how does this work? Like how do we bring this back down? And I didn't know
Yes.
because I was naive at the time, so I didn't really understand how interest rates really worked with the Bank of Canada. So
Yep.
and the interest rate cut happened. I was like, oh, that's the measure. Okay, that's the lever they're gonna pull. What did you know right away? Like they're gonna have to raise rates. How are they gonna do this?
I wouldn't say new right away, but I mean, at that time, and it's still a word that gets thrown around a lot is the housing crisis and the housing shortage. I mean, a lot of the dialogue at that time was, how are we going to build? We need to build more houses, and immigration
Yeah.
was, there was still a ton of immigration at that time. For me, and this I guess kind of speaks to not, I'm not a politician, and this is the world that I live in, and there was obviously other levers that they could pull as, on the government side of things, but at the time it seemed like the obvious solution was, less red tape, get more houses built. This housing issue is truly a crisis. Like we need more houses because where are my kids going to live? That was kind of where my head was starting to go down that path. Again, I think it's been a bit of a soft landing here, right? There's definitely been a correction, but there's still lots of activity that's happening out there as well too. Yeah, I don't know. Hopefully I answered your question there, Jason.
Well, my next point would be like, you say soft landing. Has it been soft like over the last, like, 'cause that's 20, we're trying 2022 now. You got cuts. Can't like Halifax went through the same thing. We had our rate cuts and prices came down, they softened. But as soon as like I remember 2023 into 2024, there was so much noise around they're cutting rates this year. Get ready. They're cutting rates this year.
Yeah.
Get ready. And they cut rates and the housing market picked back up. Back to actually like Halifax had an all-time high established in 2022, and we actually beat it in 24 with lower interest rates again. But they were double what we were offering. Was Toronto the same way? Like did rates help the market really bounce back?
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, why I see soft landing is, we definitely have a much more healthy market right now where buyers, like you just said, they can actually have conditions. Realtors have to work hard again right now, right? Or,
wow.
There's before the house just sold within 2 minutes and there wasn't really much work in selling a house. Now, again, that's why that's my term of the, other people probably have a different definition of a soft landing. For me, I think it's a soft landing because again, we still have a healthy market right now where there's still lots of buyers out there and there's still lots of houses selling, but it's not in these crazy astronomical 250,000, 50 plus offers. People can actually get a home inspection and they can put a financing condition on, and they don't have to, buy the first house that comes along. They can actually spend some time with the realtor and find a house that checks their boxes and what they're looking for. So, I would consider that. I think most would consider that a bit of a softer landing, and because that crazy height of that market was it just was not healthy. It's, what for anybody, stressful is crazy. So that's how I see it, Jason. Yeah,
you see it as a soft landing per se.
Yeah,
we see. I could be crazy, but I saw a stat that's like Toronto's down like 25-30%, like the GTA, in terms of home prices at the peak of COVID.
Yeah, and I mean, those stats get thrown around a lot too, but a lot of what's driving that too is the condo market. You got to remember, right?
Okay.
Like the condo market is having a huge influence on that. I think if you, and I don't have the stats in front of me, but if you pulled the layers off that onion of like, okay, what's the correction on a freehold detached home versus a condo versus a townhome, etc. Those statistics would be a little bit more
leaning on the condo side. It's the condo.
For sure. They're getting crushed right now. And that's, it's it's a tough time to sell a condo right now. It's a great time to buy one if you're downsizing or
what a salesman.
An investor. Right. It's true though. It's true. So, I mean, we had,
it does open up the opportunity.
It does. Yeah, for sure. And I was talking to one of my realtors this morning who he and a group kind of have the executive or the exclusive listing for a condo building in the south end of Guelph. They had 5 sales last week in that building, which is good. Like they're continuing to make sales. And in a lot of those cases, it's, especially with the aging demographics, it's my parents, as an example, that are selling the house and downsizing into a condo. So, there's been a really good opportunity for certain folks within the market to take advantage of this downturn.
Okay, so Matt, it's not as bad as we've been making out. We've been hyperboling Toronto for a year now.
Don't get me wrong, we're down, but when we started way up here, sorry, I've got a dog here. When we started, it's so high, it it had It had to come down somewhere. Sorry, guys. 1 second here.
It's okay, you're good. Dogs be dogs. I got one too.
Yeah,
Yep,
that actually
got him
usually
going.
happens in all of our podcasts. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I got a big Pyrenees, so he likes to bark too.
Yeah.
Don't worry.
he's a lab, and he's again, I don't normally do the work
And I
from home
think-
thing here today, but you caught me on an off day, so
Love it.
usually be in the office. But
I think too,
It's
like, you know,
okay.
when we hear the news out of Ontario that it's, you know, it's this, that, and the other thing. And I think too, it's just, you know, when they were selling for prices that have now dropped off 20 and 30%, yeah, that looks
Yeah.
drastic. But like, Alec, to your point, you're 100% right. Now that's making that place available for somebody who wasn't available
right.
to last year.
Yep.
Right. So there is a bit of
Yeah.
an ebb and flow to it, which I get, like the natural, you know, cycle of the market. But of course, you know, when you read the headlines, it's just, oh, the market's tanking, it's down this, or sales are down
Yeah.
and tanking, or it's time on market and all these other things. But it is like, again, it's like the wild, right? Like Mother Nature will figure itself out, right? So these prices have dropped off, and now there's a group of people that can afford them again. They're like, hey, I like 30%. It's not the sellers. That group's not happy, but
Right.
Well, if I can give you guys one other example, I again just doing a little bit of research before
Please.
jumping on here with you guys. In Guelph, just Guelph, our local market here, Guelph as an example, we had almost to the dollar or to the number, sorry, the exact same number of transactions in September as we did a year ago. Now the price difference on that, and the price difference on that is about, you know, between 3 and 4% lower, you know,
Oh,
from a year ago, but same number of transactions. Again, if you were to peel out the, you know, because that's totality, if you were to peel out the condos out of that, you know, we'd be relatively close on
Yeah.
prices. It's still down, don't get me wrong, but not as drastic as, you know, I mean, at the end of the day too, like, I mean, I don't know about you guys, but like the the media tends to overblow things, and it's the, you know, the sexy headline, if you will, or the doom and gloom that's always, you know, they're trying to get people to read the articles. So I
Right.
think you gotta
you're
dig a little bit
100%
deeper
right.
into the stats.
Yeah,
How
like
are-
it's a hellscape in the news.
Right. Right. How are your clients handling this? Like, because I know in Halifax, right? Like, it's funny, all-time high home prices, but days on market's up.
Yeah.
Our inventory's up. We doubled inventory from the start of the year. We're seeing price adjustments. You can negotiate. You can ask for things here and there, and you're probably going to get way more than you used to. So, how are your clients handling? Like, are they? Is there a lot more optimism in home buying in Toronto, or is it like?
The way I would describe it is just as there's a lot more a lot more patience. You know, again, I'll give you a real life example. I did 5 pre-approvals last week for clients, which up until recently, like, hadn't seen, you know, like, again, there's still people shopping, but that was a healthy number in 1 week. And in each one of these cases, they're fully taking advantage of knowing that they're well qualified, knowing that they're well positioned to buy. They have every intention to buy, but they're not going to rush out. They're going to continue to watch the market and see what's happening. Same thing. I've got a couple other clients right now that are wanting to move up. Now, the difference with them, they're nervous because they don't want to go and buy something before they sell, just because, again, the market's slower and they don't know for sure what they're going to get. And, you know, obviously they need to know what their sale price is before they go into a purchase. So it's a tricky situation right now, Jason, depending on what situation you're in. You know, like for the handful of first-time home buyers, of those 5 pre-approvals, 3 of them are first-time home buyers. And each of those 3 cases, they're well positioned and they can sit back and be patient and be picky and choosy, and, you know, they're in no rush. That's the one thing that I would say is that the big change that I've noticed with first-time home buyers, they're in no rush. But they'll still buy at some point, but they're not going to rush out there, you know, feel the need of, you know, they don't want to miss out on getting that next house because they know there's something else hitting the market the next day.
Matt, is that what you're seeing now with our pre-approvals? Are you seeing them?
I was
People just.
going to say the exact same thing. So like last week, I think it was like 3 I engaged with on like pre-approvals, and all of them first-time home buyers. And 2 of the 3 were very much like rock solid. They've got the down payment, they've got the jobs, they've got the credit. They literally have whatever they want right in front of them, right? And their feedback is, we're going to wait till the new year. We're just going to kind of take a look. We're going to see, because things are changing. But then I get ones that'll come across the desk and they're like a bull in a china shop, and they are going forward from hell or high water. And you're like doing everything you kindly can to be like, we should wait. And But, and again, it's a timing thing too, right? Like whatever your situation is, maybe you have to do it now, maybe you can't wait. But when it comes to the first time home buyers, I'm definitely starting to see more of them getting very strategic with them, right?
Yes.
Because I feel like they've sat back and waited a year or two and really put aside a healthy down payment and like
4 years.
Well,
They've been
it
waiting
depends on
years
how
to try
young
and
they
crack
are.
this housing market.
It
You know what?
depends on how young they are, but some of them have just been kind of waiting for the last year or two just to sit and see what happens. So it's
Right.
always refreshing when you get somebody like that because again,
For sure.
they're very organized and they're just, yeah.
I had a realtor give me this line this morning. It's again probably my top referral source, and he does a lot of business in the KW area. As he said to me, and he's been oh gosh, he's probably 15 years ish, I would say, give or take, is how long he's been buying and selling real estate, 12 to 15. As he said, I just wrote this down. He said that for the first time in his career, the hottest group is not the first time home buyer group. Which I thought that was a really interesting comment and take, like where he, the bulk of his business is coming from, and the people that are buying and selling are, the 50-year-old that's got a bunch of equity in their home and that, can afford to sort of make a lateral move or an up move or downsize or whatever the case may be. It's not the first time home buyers that are driving the bus. And again, I thought that was an interesting observation from him.
That's probably for the best. Because if you're first time homebuyer driving the bus, like that's when prices are typically going to increase. I would say.
Yep.
Right. So so Guelph, just correct, just so I'm on the same page here.
Yep.
Same sales. So you guys haven't actually seen a dip in sales, but prices are just down like a conservative 4 to 5%. So not all doom and gloom. You guys are happy, healthy. You're ticking along.
Yeah, and that stat was from September 2024 to September 2025.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And we'd had 10 to 15% correction before that. So, like we said before, we were also starting at an astronomical level that was a little out of control. So it's back down to a bit more of a normal, healthy market, like I said before. Manageable. That's a good way of putting it. Yeah.
How has it been with lenders in your market? Because Toronto's getting all these headlines for it's a really big, the condo crash is what we're all very familiar of because that's what's in the headlines. But that's
For sure.
It's also bleeding into single families and everything like that, just because you can't have as much inventory as you do without having a correction everywhere across the board. So how's it with banks now? How much are they tightening lending on these properties?
I'd say the lending world just continues to get tighter and tighter every day, right, Matt? Conditions that we get asked for, I don't think it's specific to a market. Yeah, if you can get an answer out of them, exactly.
I've got a question for you though, Alec. So you brought up you brought up a good point about AVMs, right?
Yep.
AVMs are they're like the holy grail in the Maritimes. If you can get a lender to do an AVM, you're batting 1,000 that day. And again, it all comes down to, yes, lenders do AVMs in Nova Scotia. So is anybody out there being like, oh, Matt can't get an AVM? Yes, you can.
What does that stand for? Just for the people in the back.
It's an automated valuation.
So automated valuation metric, right?
So basically, they're going to plug the PO box or the postal code into the system, and just like Alex said, they're going to look for a comparable. So if they've done deals in that area, they've got healthy comparables. Now they can prejudge the property value and avoid you having to go to an appraiser. My question is, where you were seeing AVMs even coming in so drastically higher than what they really should have been a couple of years ago, you noted, what are you seeing now on the AVM side of things and the appraisals? Because what I see here, if you go to one of the top 5 banks, and they'll do an AVM system, their appraisals are coming in, I think, much lower than what a homeowner would expect. So are you starting to see that
same thing here, Matt?
Area?
For sure. Yeah, definitely. And I think, there's not as many AVMs coming in. We're still getting them. Again, we've been pretty lucky here. The thing that has the shoe hasn't completely bottomed out, but yes, we are starting to see Nick works in our office, Matt, he had a couple in the last few weeks where they came in drastically lower. Now I think part of what's happening there as well to you guys is there is the human nature element to that. The appraiser is still a person, and they have their opinions on what some of these values, should be or what they think they might be down the line. So, I think appraisers, like any of us, they're concerned and they want to make sure they're protecting themselves. So I think that's definitely playing a factor. Yeah.
Okay, so you're seeing and I at least know now in Nova Scotia, in Halifax particularly, when we get appraisals, we're like, this is gonna be tight. This may not even make a list because banks are tightening. Like they're seeing like these prices have gotten a little out of control. There's a little more speculation in the market. We're going to try and reel this in a little bit to protect they're protecting their exposure. That's all they're doing.
For sure.
Banks will bank. But that's not impacted you guys so much then. How are people taking when a client gets the appraised value that's significantly lower, how are they handling that conversation?
Not well, usually, because in in a lot of cases, especially if not well, yeah, exactly. They need every dollar that they can get out of it, and I know some of the realtors that I deal with, they have people that still think their house is worth what it was worth in 2022, and then when that appraisal comes in, reality sets in a little bit, and it's a shock to them. It's a shock to folks, and they want their house to be worth 20% more. Doesn't mean that it is. You know what I mean? Yeah, there's been some difficult conversations, Jason. I'll be honest with you, where we're the ones delivering that news.
Oh my God.
Like
not even the realtor?
No, it's always us it seems anyway. I don't know about you, Matt, but I seem to always be the one
it's always
that
us.
news.
Why would the realtor have that conversation?
Right?
Because it's not us, it's the bank.
That's right.
It's not our fault.
Because the realtor already,
and we're the extension
the realtor
of the bank or
probably
lender.
Came in
so
and was like, I could sell it for this. And then so that's probably what started the conversation about potential value. And look, the Maritimes is interesting. We're always last to the party. So it's like the valuations have all started to increase. So like we're last to the party because you're starting to see them taper back in other areas, but the banks will move first. And so the banks are going to move to what's happening in markets in Ontario. RBC is RBC everywhere. So like their change in policy in Ontario to mitigate what they're seeing there is starting to happen here. Like I myself bank with RBC and I've gone to them and they're like, oh, this is what we give your value of your home. And I'm like, well, that's not what the realtor who wrote me a handwritten letter last week put in my mailbox. They gave me way more than that. Right. So
just take the handwritten card and it's good.
Yeah. I was like, they told me my house was worth whatever I wanted. But no, and so again, to Alec's point, it does suck for the appraiser now, right? Because the appraiser's stuck in a rock and a hard place. You've got a broker who's like, we need to hit this number, and a seller or a buyer who's, but then reality's in between.
Right. Matt, are you seeing those conversations too?
About
are you having those conversations with your Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Valuation way lower than what people think they are?
We're not seeing huge swings, but you're definitely starting to see 10, maybe 20 grand off the top, maybe 30, right? Okay. And like there's a degree of like wiggle room where the lenders are okay with it. But like to Alex's point, like if you came in and you seen a massive swing, you got to justify that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
You're definitely starting to see, especially in the refi area where it's, because instinctively a person goes on Viewpoint or MLS, compares their house to neighbors that sold, and they're like, let's refinance.
Because it's just been doing, Halifax has been doing this for like, we've been between 575 and 625, we've been swinging up and down for months. Right. So for us, it's just like, we can't trust comparables. But we had that conversation where someone's like, I remember someone at the home show was like, oh yeah, my neighbor sold a house in 2022. I can get that. And I was like, absolutely not. It's never going to happen. We can't get you. I can't recreate 2022.
Well, Jason,
and honestly,
if I could jump in.
Oh, go ahead, Al.
No, you first. All right, I'll go. I'll give you a good example of this year, this spring, and it's not really. I still, even just having the conversation, I feel bad about it. I had a client of mine, young guy, first time home buyer. Luckily, had help of mom and dad. He bought a condo in Guelph right at the peak of 2022.
God.
To be totally honest, I forgot about the deal because it went years. So the condo didn't register until this summer. So it was 3 years from, he bought it spec,
brand new build,
the whole 9 yards, right? And he paid, what did he pay? It was low sixes, I think, and then like $50K of upgrades. We were somewhere in the 670 to 680 range when it was all said and done. And, we all know what's happened to the condo market in the last 3 years, and it's not good. And I had to explain to this guy, just so you know, we're going to have to get an appraisal done. And, you're on the hook for that 680 with the builder, and they already had, I don't know, I think they had close to 100K worth of deposits that they made through, so they got a lot of money invest in this. The appraisal came in at 530. is what the appraisal came in. And the poor kid, like now again, luckily he had the bank of mom and dad that was able to step in and help out and, you know, pay the difference. But yeah, to pay, you know, $650 plus for a condo in Guelph, that was 1 bedroom plus a den. It's, you know, it's not even like it was a 2 bedroom. So
Right.
so again, that reality has been, you know, and again, the poor kid, he was a wonderful client and a great guy, and, you know, but just a little bit naive kind of thing, and had no idea that this was a, you know, a possibility, that how this, he just didn't understand how it worked, right? Of how that process is.
I really want to dive into this here. Like, has that conversation been happening a lot with the condo market in Toronto, or the Guelph or GTA area with you and your clients? Like, are you having these like with someone bought a brand new build condo from 3 years ago and the appraisal's just not hitting?
For sure. Yeah. I mean, they're happening all the time. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's, and again, it's the reality, and it's tough, right? Cause you're the one delivering that news, and, you know, in a polite way, you're kind of say like, hopefully you've been reading the news and you're keeping up on what's going on here. Like, don't shoot the messenger. Like, I can't control the market, but that's just the harsh reality of, you know, the situation that some folks are in. I've got another one right now where the guy wants to refi, bought it five years ago. It's up for renewal. He wants to refi to clean up a little bit of debt. There's just no equity there. Like, I can renew him. I can still renew the mortgage. But
but there's nothing left. There's nothing up and above what the renewal, whatever the appraiser is going to come in at. There's nothing extra. There's no more meat on the bone for him to pull off of to collateralize the debt.
That's right. And that's a lot of, well, I don't know about you, Matt, but a lot of my clients, you know, there's all these renewals are coming here right now. Like, we're very busy with our renewals, and the reality is nobody wanted to touch the mortgage the last 5 years because rates were really low, and life has been very expensive for the last 5 years. So people, you know, are needing and wanting to clean up some of that debt. And if the equity's not there, it is what it is.
Right. Okay.
It's one of those things too. It's like, I feel like no matter how much you can prep them to, even at the early onsets of the conversations with the condo purchases, to be like, this is a possibility. I don't think anybody mentally actually thinks it'll happen. And then the duration of time it takes for the build to happen and the build to be complete, and the market swings. It's like, like that worst case scenario I almost said worst case Ontario. The worst case scenario we talked about a couple of years ago has happened, right?
You coined that
My
term.
big
That's
thing now,
good.
I find, right? I think that one of the bigger conversations I'm having to have now with clients is, again, because Nova Scotia catches up to everything. So we haven't seen property values like this in the Maritimes ever, but property taxes are taking a swing. So that's really the big thing now. Like, well, I'll present a budget breakdown to the client, and then when we look at the monthly payment, I'm like, yeah, your monthly payment is X, but after you add in your $100 for utilities and your property tax, it's actually Y. And they're like, whoa, what's that $400 a month? And I'm like, that's your property tax broken out monthly. And I'm like, and because as soon as you take possession, government's like, new number.
Yep. Right. I want to bring it back for a few things. One, we were talking about condos a second, and like Matt said something of like, when buyers bought these condos 3 years ago, the only thing they ever knew was they go up in value. That was the only thing anyone ever knew. So when they shift, and they don't, but when was the last time it shifted? Right. So like they're seeing a correction for the first time in how many years of Toronto home prices that they just happen to get caught under. And my question, my next thing is like, okay, how many people are just not closing? Like, telling the builder, keep your deposit. I'm not closing on this condo because the numbers just don't make sense.
I mean, I've yet to have one. People find a way. I'm sure they exist. I'm sure they exist out there for sure.
Yeah.
You know, you've been hearing some crazy stories. Again, how much truth is to this, I don't know. So I don't want to start rumors on here, but you hear some of these crazy stories of, you know, houses, you know, brand new build homes in certain pockets of the GTA, Brampton, Mississauga, some of those areas where mysteriously they're catching on fire at night, right? Like, and it's happening a bit more. I mean, again, like, you hear these stories, Jason, how often is it happening? I don't know. Again, we don't see that here in our market, but, you know, where there's things like that are happening, right? Where, because they can't close and there's nothing they can do. So then, you know, but there's insurance money.
Right.
So,
well, there's one thing you can do.
I've never heard that rumor yet. Yeah, I've heard the rumor of like condos not closing because buyers are like, I'm only got 50K deposit in this thing. I'm 150K in the whole in equity. I'm not closing, which is actually like the smart thing to do. It sucks to leave 50K just on the table.
That's right.
But when you think about the negative equity is way more, but I haven't heard yet the insurance fires.
Yeah, it's happening again. How often it's happening, I don't know. I'm not trying to start rumors here,
No,
but I know It has happened. So yeah, crazy.
Oh,
Desperate people will do desperate things, right?
100%.
man.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like that's the other thing of like someone buys a new condo because it's the condo market that's tanked because you guys have gotten so much supply in the last few years of what condos are. Uh, I just like my next thing would be you touched on something there with renewals, and we've been speaking about renewals for the last few years on this podcast, being like, okay,
Yeah.
when we get in the like, I think it's like 60% of all mortgages in Canada are for renewal this year, next year. How are your renewals going in Toronto or in the Guelph area? Like, how are
Yeah.
you dealing with renewals right now?
Yeah, I mean, and so far so good. I would say Jason and I, we talk about this a lot in our industry, obviously, and I remind people whenever I get asked this question is we always talk here about like those 2 years of 25 and 26. Yes, that's true, but really it's more like Q3 and Q4 of 25. Like we've really just dipped our toes into the beginning of this, tsunami of renewals that's coming up. So it's
Okay.
all of 2026, but it's really there's like a 12 to 14 month window where the bulk of those, I've heard a bunch of those different stats too. I've heard 53%, I've heard 56%, and it's whatever.
Depending on what bank you talk to.
Exactly, right? So, more than 50%, we'll say that, right, are going to renew.
Yeah.
But like I said, it's 2 years, but it's over the course of like 12 to 14 months. So far, so good, I would say, on our renewals. I haven't had any issues yet with anybody that just can't afford to do it. And like we've said before, I mean, yes, we've had this big up and we've had this correction in the market, but generally speaking, because there was such that big, bump that we've had to home values, and yes, they've come down to a bit more of a manageable area, as Matt said, generally speaking, in most cases, clients still have equity that they can tap into. And the approach that we've been taking over a lot of our clients too is if you need to push your amortization out, if you started on a 25 and you want to bump it back out to 25 for the time being, just while we're kind of going through this right now, there are ways to help people with cash flow, whether that's consolidating debt or pushing their amortization out. Like for me personally, I try very, very, very hard to be, you don't want to be pushing somebody's amortization out just to like improve their cash flow, but it's more of if they have to, you know what I mean?
Right.
Not because, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? So, because at the end of the day, it's, as our goal is to eventually have our clients pay their mortgage off. If we're doing our jobs properly, we're setting them up for success, and, that's what we want. That's what we ultimately want. Right. So yeah, so I would say so far so good on the renewal front. I personally was a little bit concerned of like, what is this going to look like? Like how many people are, going to be in a situation to like, I have to sell my house because I can't afford it anymore.
Right.
I don't know about you, Matt, but I personally haven't had any of those yet.
No.
I haven't heard of any of that yet. I'm sure the odd one will come, but it's not as dire straits as I think as the media tends to portray it. Right, because everybody just talks about like, oh, we're going to go from 2% to a 4% interest rate. Okay, yeah, that's true, but we could also clean up and consolidate some debt and push your amortization back out, and like there's ways to manage that increase to interest rate.
And that's the whole reason, and the big reason why they have the stress test. So like
exactly,
your mortgage is going to go up, your rate's going to go up, but that's why they did the stress test, right? To kind of foresee this, right? So, but yeah, much like Alec, it's not like I'm not seeing people come and being like, I have to sell the place. I'm just totally screwed now that I'm going from a 1 to a 4 or whatever the case may be. A lot of opportunity just to clean up a lot of consumer debt and stuff like that. And to his point too, like the value appreciation in the province is definitely helping them, because if they do have to take it to that 70% loan to value, 75, 80, they have the available opportunity now because their house price has appreciated. That's great.
Right.
But nobody in a really, really bad situation where it's just the rate itself is causing them the pain.
Right.
It's really
right.
now to capitalize and clean this stuff up. Yeah, your rate's gone up, but just the rate going up alone isn't tanking them. So that I've been fortunate to not have to, see any of that on this.
But we're gonna wrap this up soon. I got a question for Alec. So, all in all, Toronto not that bad. Renewals are okay. Condos suck. We knew that.
We're really
how
good
do
at
you-
summarizing.
I'm almost there. My question would be now, like, how do you feel about your market in the next year or two? Because now comes the question of like, people are speculating this is the start of a correction that we're seeing.
Yep.
Like, do we think that we're going to level off? We think we're going to see further corrections, or are you guys? Do you think you're comfortable and like things will probably just maintain at this pace. I know I'm asking for a crystal ball, and we
Yeah,
can't
I
all
was just
know
gonna
what
say
we're
you're
talking
asking me to
about.
predict the future here, right? So
I know.
I mean, my 2 cents on that, again, being in the business as long as I have, you kind of get a feel for some of this stuff sometimes. Yeah, I mean, I think we're still going to continue to see, a bit of a correction here, but I mean, I'm not about prepared to say that we've bottomed out yet. I think, especially the fact that we're coming into the winter months, and depending on what the Bank of Canada does or doesn't do. Do we potentially get a trade deal? Who the hell knows? I'm not going there. I'm not going down that path.
No, leave that alone.
But point being is, like, I'm still confident. Yes, because like I said, I had I had 5 people looking to get pre-approved last week that have good jobs, that are well positioned. Another comment that was made to me this morning with one of my realtors that I really liked this as well too, is that the best houses in the right categories, like at the right, the best house in that 700K price point, it's still selling. Houses that need work are sitting, and there are some houses, yes, that are just not selling. But we do have, there's still a lot of buyers out there. There are, there is that younger generation that, like you said, been sitting on the sidelines for 4 years. There is some pent up demand. I think, just that, like I said earlier, I think that first time home buyer is an opportunity where they can sit back and be patient, and they're taking advantage of it right now. But like you, Matt, I've had a lot of people say, I'm going to wait till the new year. So I think, based on what I'm hearing, I think it's going to be a quiet fall, and it'll be really interesting to see what happens in, March and April. Do we have that traditional spring market for the first time in a while?
Right.
We'll
It's
see.
funny because I said the same thing, where it's like in Halifax, like it's like I call it the Holy Trinity: price, condition, location. If you got those 3, you got no problems.
It's gonna go.
It'll
That's
go.
right.
It'll go. If you have 2 out of 3, your price better be right, or the market will get you to that price. And if you've got 1 of 3, you better humble yourself, because the buyers are just gonna walk past you and go, I can get something better somewhere else. Like that just seems to be. It is the renovations that just seem to be really sitting. It's not like in 2022, you could sell an absolute diabolical shithole and be like, 500K. Also, tear it down.
That's
and
right.
buyer would be like, yes. And a bank would be like,
justify it.
yes.
Yep. The good old days.
Yeah.
I don't miss those days. Matt, is that what you're seeing is too? Like you're still getting a lot of pre-approvals coming in, a lot of interested clients, people are still transacting?
Yeah, I think there's if you're looking to get into the housing market, you're looking to get into the housing market. You know what I mean? Whether the rates are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever, you want to buy a home, you want to buy a home. I think what I'm paying attention to in Nova Scotia is the economic development, because Nova Scotia's in this crazy spot right now where we've got huge push on natural resources. We've got a huge push on, areas of the economy that we didn't pay attention to before because it involved tearing down some woods or whatever the case may be. But if there's still a lot of positive economic growth in Nova Scotia, I think we're going to see our stuff kind of sustain and just keep going, because to Alex, folks have good paying jobs, like depending on where they're at, like they've got good careers, they're putting the savings aside and they're making it happen, right? I don't know if we're going to continue to see massive upswings in our pricing, because there is a ceiling. You can only get so much blood out of that rock.
Yeah.
But I think, if things keep moving positively in Nova Scotia when it comes to wanting to develop things and grow industry, that's a good thing for here.
Right. Alec, last time before I let you go, and we'll wrap this up.
This has been fun. Appreciate it again, by the way. It's been good. Yeah.
We're not done yet. Because I'm curious. We've been dancing around the condo topic for a while. How is it in Guelph? Like the condos, like are they all falling to pieces now? Like it, and do we see that? Do you see that coming still, or is it still pretty volatile market in the condo market right now?
It's a good question. I don't know. I'll be honest with you. I mean, that's a question, obviously, for a local realtor that could answer that a little bit better than I could. That being said, I've got something else written down here. Like, it's kind of crazy. The condo market in Guelph, and again, we're not the GTA, but we're very close, and there's a lot of similarities. It's behaving, very similar. Like the lowest price point for a condo in Guelph that you can get. This would be like, your not so nice location and not so nice building. 25, and so 325 would be the low end. There was a condo, like a penthouse condo, that sold last week for $1,050,000. So like,
okay, you're still seeing it.
There's a huge swing, right?
That's
and
healthy.
It depends on location. That's healthy. That's a big number. Yeah, that surprised me.
That's
I
a good
was really
number.
surprised when I heard that.
Yeah.
So there's, I don't know if that really answers the question, Jason, or not, but it just totally depends. But I mean, I think, like there's a lot of, the example I was given as well too. There was a client that was interested in a condo. They weren't able to agree on it. And they're like, yeah, whatever. There's going to be another one that's going to pop up next week anyway,
Yeah.
and it did. So
Right.
you know what I
Well,
mean?
I think that answers it in itself, where like you can tell it's a healthier market when a client can say, "Oh, I know, I'll get another one."
Yeah, exactly.
They know options are coming, they know price points coming.
Yep.
Oh, and like 325 for a condo in Guelph, you can't get that in Halifax right now. Like
No.
you can't. There's no chance you can. And like if you spend 325 on a condo on like Peninsula Halifax, like you're essentially you're probably laying it on
It must
fire
have been
from
a
being
crime
honest.
scene. Like, I'm assuming it was a crime scene. Like, yeah.
Right. And I'm not trying. I'm just trying to, because like you obviously you're working with a lot of realtors. You hear a lot. I know I talk to Matts and Andrew all the time. Like they know my opinion on the real estate market every day.
Yeah.
So I'm sure you're talking to your realtors. I'm sure they're giving you tidbits and stuff. It's fascinating because the media paints that picture so horribly of what the condo market and what the Toronto market really is. It's nice to hear that like it's not all. Because like when you hear it from us, we're all like Matt summed up perfectly. Like we're so slow to catch your coattails, but we always do.
Yeah.
Halifax always it might be 2 years later, but when we hear things like if Toronto's down 25%, 30%, we're looking at being like, oh, what's Halifax going to do? Because Halifax we'll see it. There's no way that our economic powers of Canada can go through price adjustments, and we don't.
Yeah.
There's just no I don't care how much uranium we can get out of our soil. There's just not enough uranium to give enough jobs. You know
It's
what
really
I mean?
the woods that they're going to have to tear down that's going to be the problem. We don't like tearing down forests in Nova Scotia.
It'll be really interesting, guys. If you ever wanted, I'd be happy to jump back on. We're hosting an event on the 21st in Guelph. It's called Rise to Thrive, where we've got a gentleman named Greg Casey from Sagen, who's a he's Sagen being one of the insurers, obviously. And if anybody's ever heard him speak, he's amazing, super brilliant guy, great speaker. He's always got tons of good data. We're really interested to see what he tells us about our local housing market for the general area. And then we also have an economist coming from BMO, Bank Montreal, to come and talk.
Yeah, they are, Matt.
Right. So we're going to be, and part of like what Greg speaks about in his previous presentations too is like, what are we seeing today? But more like it's more about projections and forecasting, at least when I've heard him speak before. So I'm very interested to hear what he has to say. And I mean, I'll say this to you guys too. Like we generally get about 100 or so realtors that come out to that, or at least that's what 100 register and 80 show up is typically the way it works, kind of thing. But as soon as we put our invite out, like we've never seen people, jump on. They got a bit more time because the realtors are a little bit slower, but everybody wants to know what's happening, or what can they expect, and what kind of advice can they give their buyers and sellers of what to expect moving forward. So we'll hopefully have a bit more answers for you after next
Would love
week.
that.
So yeah,
always. Yeah. Come on back anytime you want. We can always do a part 2.
Love it.
I'll have my AirPods.
Always.
All right.
I'll have my earpiece for. Exactly.
Fuck off.
Did he say he just found his earpiece?
No, he's an idiot.
I still don't have them.
He's an idiot. Man, I am done. We are wrapped up. Alec, I just want to say thank you so much for taking the time. I appreciate it. Like I said, Matt and I have been speaking about Toronto for a long time, and it was nice to hear that like it's not as crazy as you hear or read. It's nice to hear that like, okay, it is, you see things softening, but it's not quite as dramatic as they make it out to believe in the media.
For sure. Yep.
Yeah,
and there has. There's no question. There's definitely been a correction. Like, I'm not trying to say there hasn't, but it's yeah.
No, but I think to Jay's point, it's like in the news they talk about the correction as if it's going to tank all of Canada, right? Because of the size of Ontario. Right. They're like everything's on fire in the housing market and the job market, and they'll be, so it's like it is good to actually hear from boots on the ground that sees it every day.
That's not like good. The media to fearmonger, would it? No,
weird.
No.
It's weird.
It's also refreshing to like pre-approvals are happening and buyers are ready for like if you want to know if your housing market's good or not, are buyers want to transact.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like if you have people that want to transact, your housing market's in good shape and you will be fine. If you have no one that wants to transact, that's when you're like, oh, we're in a dark spot.
Yeah. Yes. I totally agree.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'll let you guys go now. last thing before I go, this is an online pod, so all I ask is that when I exit, just leave the browser open so that the content can finish uploading and I can cut it up. Alec, I'll give you some content for your socials.
Amazing.
And Matt, I'm sure I'll see you. We're recording everyone this week, aren't we?
I think so, yeah. But you got to get it in my schedule because Thursday's blowing up.
Okay. Well, Matt and I can sort that out. Alec, appreciate you so much. Thanks
for having me, guys. That was a lot of fun. Appreciate it.
Every day.